Like Water for Chocolate. Like Water for Chocolate, Spanish, Como Agua para Chocolate, is a novel by Mexican novelist and screenwriter Laura Esquivel. The novel follows the story of a young woman named Tita, who longs for her beloved, Pedro, but can never have him because of her mother's upholding of the family tradition. The youngest daughter cannot marry, but instead must take care of her mother until she dies. Tita is only able to express herself when she cooks. Esquivel employs magical realism to combine the supernatural with the ordinary throughout the novel. The novel won the American Booksellers Book of the Year Award for Adult Trade in 1994. Plot summary. Like Water for Chocolate is divided into 12 chapters, one for each month of the year. And each chapter comes with a Mexican recipe that correlates to a specific event in the protagonist's life. Tita de la Garza, the protagonist, is 15 years old at the beginning of the novel. She lives on a ranch near the Mexico-United States border with her domineering mother, Mama Elena, her older sisters Gertrudis and Rosara, Nacha, the ranch cook, and Chencha, the ranch maid. Pedro Musqui is their neighbor, with whom Tita falls in love at first sight at a family Christmas party. The feeling turns out to be mutual. So Pedro asks Mama Elena for Tita's hand in marriage. Unfortunately, she forbids it, citing the de la Garza family tradition that the youngest daughter, in this case, Tita, must remain single and take care of her mother until she, Mama Elena, dies. She suggests that Pedro marry Tita's eldest sister, Rosara, instead, in order to stay close to Tita. Pedro decides to follow this advice. Tita has a deep connection with food and cooking thanks to Nacha, who was Tita's primary caretaker growing up. Her love for cooking also comes from the fact that she was born in the kitchen. Mama Elena forces Tita to help Nacha prepare the meal for Rosara's wedding reception. While preparing the wedding cake, Tita is overcome with sadness, and cries into the cake batter. At the wedding reception, everyone except for Tita gets violently sick after eating the wedding cake, vomiting everywhere. Suspecting that Tita put an emetic into the wedding cake, Mama Elena violently beats Tita. On the day of the wedding, Tita finds Nacha lying dead on her bed, holding a picture of her fiancé. Later, Rosara becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son, Roberto, which Tita delivers on her own. Rosara is unable to nurse Roberto while recovering from pregnancy complications, eclampsia. So Tita brings a hungry Roberto to her breast, to stop him from crying since he won't drink tea or cow's milk. Tita begins producing breast milk, and is able to nurse Roberto. This brings her and Pedro closer than ever. They begin meeting secretly around the ranch behind the family's backs. Tita pours her intense emotions into her cooking, unintentionally affecting those around her. After Tita makes quail in rose petal sauce for dinner one evening, flavored with Tita's erotic thoughts of Pedro, Gertrudis becomes so inflamed with lust that she sweats pink, rose-scented sweat, when she goes to cool off in the shower. Her body gives off so much heat that the shower's tank water evaporates before reaching her body and the shower itself catches fire. As Gertrudis runs out of the burning shower naked, she is carried away on horseback by revolutionary Captain Juan Alejandrez, who is drawn to her from the battlefield by her rosy scent. They make love atop Juan's horse as they gallop away from the ranch. Gertrudis is later revealed to be working as a prostitute in a brothel on the border and is subsequently disowned by her mother. Rosara, Pedro and Roberto are forced to move to San Antonio at Mama Elena's insistence, who suspects a relationship between Tita and Pedro. Roberto dies soon after the move and Rosara later must undergo a hysterectomy due to complications occurring during the birth of her daughter, Esperanza. Upon hearing of her nephew's death, Tita, who cared for Roberto herself, blames her mother, who responds by smacking Tita across the face with a wooden spoon, thus breaking her nose. Tita, destroyed by the death of her nephew and unwilling to further cope with her mother's controlling ways, secludes herself in the dovecote until John Brown, the widowed family doctor, arrives at Mama Elena's request to have him take Tita to an insane asylum. Instead, John takes Tita back to his home to live with him and his young son, Alex. Tita and John soon fall in love, and are eventually engaged to be married, but her underlying feelings for Pedro do not waver. While John travels to the United States to retrieve his Aunt Mary for the wedding, Tita loses her virginity to Pedro. A month later, Tita is worried she may be pregnant with Pedro's child. Her mother's ghost haunts her, telling her that she and her unborn child are cursed. Gertrudis, now married to Juan Alejandrez and a general in the army, returns to the ranch with her troops to cut the Three Kings Day bread and mentions Tita's pregnancy in Pedro's presence, leading Tita and Pedro to consider running away together. This causes Pedro to get drunk and sing a love song below Tita's window while she is arguing with Mama Elena's ghost. Just as she confirms she isn't pregnant, due to a late period, and frees herself of her mother's grasp once and for all, Mama Elena's ghost gets revenge on Tita by setting Pedro on fire, leaving him badly burnt and bedridden. Meanwhile, as Tita is preparing dinner for John and his Aunt Mary, she and Rosara argue over Pedro, Esperanza, and Rosara's intention to have Esperanza remain single and care for Rosara until her death, per the family tradition, which Tita detests. She vows not to let the tradition ruin Esperanza's life as it did hers. At dinner, Tita tells John that she cannot marry him because of her affair with Pedro. Many years later, John's son Alex and Esperanza are engaged, and Tita prepares for their wedding, after Rosara has died from digestive problems. During the wedding, Pedro proposes to Tita saying that he does not want to die without making Tita his wife. Tita accepts and Pedro dies making love to her in the kitchen storage room right after the wedding. Tita is overcome with sorrow and cold and begins to eat a box of candles. The candles are sparked by the heat of Pedro's memory, creating a spectacular fire that engulfs them both, eventually consuming the entire ranch. The narrator of the story is Esperanza's daughter, nicknamed Tita after her great-aunt. She describes how, after the fire, the only thing that survived under the smoldering rubble of the ranch was Tita's cookbook, which contained all the recipes described in the preceding chapters. End of the summary. Thank you.